Hi there, I'm Pamela and we're in my kitchen again where I share with you some of my favorite recipes or those most requested by my friends and family. Today we're going to be making maple pecan scones. I clipped this recipe out of Bon Appetit magazine a few years ago, and every time I make it I get rave reviews, so I want to share it with you today. So the first thing we're going to do is combine our dry ingredients. This is flour, 2 cups, and some sugar, half a cup, some salt, 1/4 teaspoon, and some baking powder. And all we're going to do is take our wire whisk and mix those ingredients really well. Now, I've got butter in my freezer. This is 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And I'm going to show you a different technique this time. Way back, one of my earlier videos, we did Old English scones. And we cubed the butter, and then we used the pastry blender and sometimes our hands and blended it in. Well, this recipe calls for the same blending technique, but I want to show you today a very easy way, and it takes less time if you're not one of those people that likes to spend too much time blending and mixing. This is fast and easy. I like to take wax paper. This is my old box blender. Okay, and I'm just grating my frozen butter. I'm going to remove that eventually. So, and if your butter isn't like completely frozen, just really hard. If you get it in there for about 30 minutes, it'll be good. So, I'm just going to grate this. This is really hard. It's been in there since this morning. Normally we would cube our butter into like 1/2-inch little cubes, and then it takes quite a while when you're trying to blend it with a pastry blender. But this gives you a bunch of shavings basically. Dump that in. Get as many of those in there as you can. Okay, now we're going to, let me wipe my hands. They're going to be greasy and I won't be able to grip that thing. Okay, so now we're going to use this. Oh, before we do, take your clean hands and coat the butter that you've grated. There. Now it won't stick to this so quickly. And then we're just going to finish incorporating it into the flour with our pastry blender. If you don't have a pastry blender, you can use your hands. Just kind of rub, and it doesn't take very long because this is really small from the grate that we did, so it's just about there. You want it about pea size or a little bit smaller. This is going to give us a really nice flaky scone. So I'll go through this again. Either way is fine. Okay. So now we're going to add in our toasted pecans. I just purchased pecan halves and I put them in an oven, in a skillet or on a cookie sheet, and toast them in about a 300 oven until you start to smell your pecans. You'll know when they're ready. I take them out and I try one, and if it still looks rather raw, then I give it a little more time. So our pecans are in there. Next thing, and I'm keeping this in the refrigerator because I like to use cold ingredients, but we have our whipping cream. I'm using heavy cream. You don't have to use heavy, it can just be regular whipping cream. And we're going to add a couple of egg yolks to this. Save your egg whites. I've got a really great pavlova recipe. There's one in one of my earlier videos that you could use these egg whites in. There we go. We'll put those aside. We're going to use them in a bit. So we have our heavy cream, we have our 2 egg yolks, and we have maple extract. I like to use pure maple extract. Usually you can find it just about anywhere, but if you can't, I will be honest with you, the imitation maple isn't bad. So we're just going to mix our eggs, our extract, and the cream. Be sure you mix that well so you don't have an egg yolk that lands in your... Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to get a fork and I'm just going to drizzle this over my butter and flour. And mix until it comes together. You're going to still have some flour at the bottom a little bit, and I will tell you, I always keep a little extra whipping cream nearby just in case it doesn't seem to be coming together. If you're a little heavy-handed when you measure your flour, you will probably need to add more whipping cream. You've got to be careful when measuring flour that you spoon it into your measuring cup and you don't scoop flour. You're going to be tired of hearing me say that, but it really does affect recipes. Okay, so I still have some dry bits down there, but I'm going to scrape off this. Kind of press it together before you put it out on your board. Kind of get a ball together. Okay, so there, you can see I've still got some dry stuff there, but we'll get that worked in. The little last bit. And you know, with this recipe, I don't find it's necessary to flour your board at all because there's enough flour in here and you kind of have to... Now, we're not kneading this, but 3 or 4 times just to get the flour that was on the outside mixed in. And then just kind of pick up your crumbs. Okay? There. Now we've got a nice ball. Now at this point, I'm going to add a little flour to my board. I didn't do it earlier because I don't want to add flour into this mixture. This is just going to keep it from sticking when we press it down and cut them out. You can knock off a little of the extra dough off your hands because it's going to be all over there. So yeah, you don't need a rolling pin. Just press this out. Slide it a little bit, make sure it's staying loose. This smells so good right now. The maple extract is so pungent, and it's what makes these scones so nice. Okay, so I like to get about 1 inch. Don't roll it out too small or too thin, or your scones just won't be generous. So there, about like that. Now I'm going to take a knife. I know this is ginormous, but I like a knife that cuts across the whole thing, so I'm not having to pull through. I like to just cut straight down. And then we're going to cut them in 3/4, and then we'll do it again, and we'll have 8 scones. I've got my oven preheated to 425. We're going to put these on a parchment lined baking sheet and keep them an inch or 2 apart. If it happens to stick when you're at this point, just take a little spatula and lift them, but mine aren't sticking at all. So now we're going to bake these about 16 minutes. Every oven is different. I check them at 14 minutes. It's usually between 14 and 16. You don't want to overbake your scones. They will be dry, and a dry scone is just not a good scone. So once they've been in there about 14 minutes, pull them out, and they should be nicely risen and taken on some color. And even if you have to, just on one of them, break off the end just to see if it looks done inside. If it does, take it out. The bottom should be a nice golden color, and the top should have color as well. But like I said, I almost prefer a little underbaked to an overbaked scone. Now, the egg whites that we have here, you can beat these up and brush the top of your scone, and then they're fine, just like that. You can serve them like that. But today we're going to make a glaze. I prefer them that way. It's a glaze made with powdered sugar and butter and pure maple syrup and a pinch of salt. So anyway, I've whipped this up just a little bit, probably not quite enough, and I'm still going to brush them even if I'm going to glaze them. But this is what you would do if you just didn't want to add the extra sugar or the glaze and you just wanted a very plain scone. So these are going to bake and cool a little bit, and then we will put our glaze on them. Okay, our scones are out of the oven. They're beautiful. They've got a little bit of color from that egg white that we brushed on them, and they'd be perfectly fine to serve just like this. But I rarely do. I usually make a bit of a glaze just to decorate them and add just a little bit of sweetness. These are not real sweet scones. There's only a 1/2 cup of sugar in the recipe. So I like to add this glaze. So what I've got here is some melted unsalted butter, a pinch of salt, and some pure maple syrup. And I'm going to add powdered sugar. How much kind of depends on you and how thick you like it. You want something that you can easily drizzle. I will give the amounts that I use, and you can adjust. But I'm just mixing this up. I want to be able to let it drip off my spoon. I'd say that's a really good consistency. Now, something else you can do is completely spread the scone with this glaze. If you plan on doing that, you'd probably want to double the recipe that I'm going to give you. But I usually just drizzle it. And it looks best if you go the same direction, just back and forth, rather than back and forth and up and down. Then it just looks like a little bit of chaos. So just start your drizzle and just keep going the same direction, back and forth. And this glaze will set up and get rather stiff if you don't use it shortly after mixing it. Okay, so I've got these glazed, and I'm going to go back and just add a little bit more. As you can probably see, this glaze is getting thicker. So the more it cools, the thicker it gets and the harder it is to spread. If by chance you walk away from it and it's too stiff, add a few drops of milk to it or cream and just mix it in, or reheat it on very low. Anyway, these are our maple pecan scones. You should smell my kitchen. I know I always say that, but it smells like maple and toasted pecans in here. And you really need to make these this fall and give them a try, because I know you're going to like them. Hey, if you are enjoying my videos, please give them a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified when I upload the next video, if you hit the bell, you'll be notified. Hey, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.